Welcome to part 5, ladies and gentlemen, of our fabulous series with Celebrating Act 2 celebrates Forgotten Hollywood's top 3 choices of the studio era. Do I have that right?
Yeah, different genres too. Yes,
Yeah.
The 10
absolutely.
Okay.
genres,
Now,
yeah.
Right. You got it right. You were in slow-mo, but you got it right.
okay. Today's category is, may I have the envelope, please?
It
Yeah,
is
and that category is not baseball, but it's screwball.
screwball comedies.
Football comedies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, Manny.
And of course, first of all, let me say hello to Art and to you, John. Thank you for having me, and thank you for allowing me to do my top tens series of the top three in a different genre of forgotten Hollywood favorite movies. This is Screwball Comedies. These were movies that were essentially really big from the years of 1934 to about 1945, somewhere in that area. Where movies were taking a little bit from the silent era and making slapstick comedies, but they didn't call them slapstick as they did in the silent era. They changed the name to Screwball Comedies, and it featured some great actors. And maybe the best of the bunch might have been Cary Grant, because he's all over this category.
Yeah.
I mean, his fingerprints are definitely there.
You know,
And
when Manny, when you say screwball comedies, you're absolutely right. It places them right in that, what, 10, 15, 20-year period maximum.
right,
And the interesting thing, I love the fact that you compare them to the slapsticks of the silence, because one of the things I think about at when you say screwball comedies is witty dialogue.
witty dialogue, and always a hint of romance. You always get that feeling of romance in this
Oh,
too.
absolutely. Yeah.
But romance takes second fiddle or the back seat to the comedy that's going on.
Correct.
And that you can't lose sight of that. There is that undercurrent of love and romance, but it's only used as a vehicle to push forward the really raucous comedy that's going on.
Everything to make jokes about it. Yep.
Exactly. And my honorable mention, again, Cary Grant is all over this. Okay, so just bear with me, because this is going to be a Cary Grant love fest. And he's part of the honorable mention as well. Arsenic and Old Lace.
Oh,
Uh,
of course.
It was a huge Broadway hit that really starred, of all people, Boris Karloff as the villain.
Did it really?
Yeah,
On stage.
on stage. Frank Capra turned this into a movie. They made it in 1941, and they promised to release it at the conclusion of the Broadway run. The problem is that it kept getting extended because it was so popular. They didn't release the movie till 1944.
Really? That's
Yeah.
funny. That's funny.
So, again, Cary Grant, Jean Arthur, Peter Lorre, Raymond Massey, just a Jack Carson, I mean, Edward Everett Horton, lots of
cast.
just crazy things going on, none of which better served than a John Alexander as Teddy Roosevelt. But that's our honorable mention. Let's get to the top three.
Okay.
And believe it or not, believe it or not, Cary Grant is going to reign supreme with a movie that was actually a remake from a 1931 stage play and film. The original was called The Front Page, but in this particular case, Howard Hawks puts together a fast-paced, fast dialogue, extraordinarily witty story with about the newspaper business with
Yes.
Cary Grant, Rosalind Russell,
Yes.
and it's called His Girl Friday.
Yeah.
I just love this film. It moves so fast. The foil in all this, he's not a villain, but the foil who takes all the brunt of the humor is the very slow-paced Ralph Bellamy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and there's this. Yeah, and just like in Arsenic and Old Lace, when they keep pointing out to Raymond Massey that he keeps looking like Boris Karloff, they're kind of making fun of the fact that Boris Karloff was in the Broadway. There's one scene where somebody's looking for Ralph Bellamy, and Cary Grant says to whoever it is who's looking for him, he says, "I don't know, I can't describe him. He's got this nondescript look. He kind of looks like Ralph Bellamy." The actor. He looks like the actor, Ralph Bellamy. And so they make fun of Ralph Bellamy, and he's all in good fun, just has fun with the whole thing. But it's how fast this movie moves. It moves like this.
Wow. It's
And,
amazing.
and Howard Hawks did something really remarkable in this movie. He made sure that all of the dialogue overlapped. Before this
Mm.
movie, people would talk and then they talk and then they talk and then they talk. But that sounds like a scripted dialogue. In this movie, they're talking over each other throughout the whole thing, and it looks like real dialogue, the way real people talk.
Yeah.
But the
Like
way
us. Yeah, like
yeah,
us, right,
exactly,
John?
like
John?
us. Yes,
Huh.
like us, exactly. His Girl Friday has to be in my top 3. It's just such a superb movie. I
Yeah.
watch it every time it's on television.
You know,
Number
you
2,
mentioned you mentioned the dialogue technique. That's what created part of the pacing, what made it so fast and so real. And Woody Allen, God bless his soul, Woody Allen always tried to do that same thing
you're absolutely correct.
to a different effect. To a
Yeah,
different effect.
you are absolutely correct. Woody Allen was a big fan of this kind of dialogue.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Number 2, we finally have gotten Gary Cooper into our top 3. Believe
Okay,
it
it's
or
about
not,
time.
it wasn't High Noon, it wasn't Sergeant York, but it was a movie with Barbara Stanwyck that talks about language in the most funny ways. It's kind of like a takeoff on the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs thing. It's called Ball of Fire.
Oh, I'm not
Ball
familiar
of
with that.
Oh, it's a great film. It's funny, and it's got some great. It's got some great character actors in it. S.Z. Sakal, Henry Travers, Dan Duryea plays a bad guy. He plays a gangster named Duke Pastrami. I mean, they got these funny names. All of these professors, they're all studying language and the arts and history and science. They're putting together a book of all books of research about intelligence, and they have to cover all these different fields. And Gary Cooper is in charge of language. So he's learning the art of slang. And you know how slang was really big in the in the 40s, and they have this wonderful scene where Barbara Stanwyck is teaching him how to kiss the right way, and she says to him, "There is yum," and she kisses him, and she says, "And then there's yum," and then she kisses him, and then she says, "And then there's yum yum," and then she really kisses him. And the whole thing, I mean, he falls over, lots of slapstick comedy. It works in so many ways. If you've never seen John Ball of Fire, put it on your list.
I will. I'm writing that down.
Write it down.
Good time. And you're a Gary Cooper fan anyway, so you should be Ball of Fire. Yeah, Ball of Fire makes my list for sure. It was actually redone in a kind of a swing style. With like 5 years later, it was redone by Danny Kaye, and it was called "The Song Is Born." So that's how good this film was. Yeah.
And number 1.
Okay, number 1, classic comedy, classic screwball, witty dialogue, like you said, again featuring Cary Grant. But really, the stars in this film are Katharine Hepburn, and who did a lot of Screwball. She did Bringing Up Baby, Holiday. She did lots of them.
Yes.
But in this particular case, she plays off of James Stewart to perfection, and Jimmy Stewart actually wins the Oscar for this, The Philadelphia Story.
Oh yeah.
So funny. It is so witty. It is so charming, and it's also scathing in its critique of classes, people living in the upper class, people living in the middle class, people living in maybe the throes of poverty. But it's so witty in the way it presents itself. And by the way, I guess this is the third of the remakes, because this was also redone with Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra as a musical called High Society.
Right.
So, I mean, these movies are so classic that they actually were remade. Even Bringing Up Baby, who I alluded to, was remade years later. It was called, with Barbara Streisand and Ryan O'Neal, it was called What's Up, Doc?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
by the way, so it's interesting that you narrowed the time frame so that it would truly be screwball comedies, but there are so many great ones that are still, I guess, within 1967, like all Hepburn and Tracy. So many things that would qualify. They would qualify as well, but not a screwball, because I think that era had passed. So you rightfully nailed that.
The real authentic screwball comedy that I think exists post 1945. I mean, you would have to probably include Some Like It Hot.
Right.
Yeah,
and probably What's Up, Doc. I mean, those are like the two best post 1930 to 1945, I think.
sure.
Yeah.
And I want to give an honorable mention not to a movie, but to an actress who was absolutely fabulous in Screwballs, and that was Irene Dunn. I
Oh,
mean,
yes.
she's fabulous in
Yes.
Theodora Goes Wild, The Awful Truth. I mean, she's just absolutely magnificent, and I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention Irene Dunn and all the great Screwballs
Yeah.
that she did as well. So.
You know, I've the Screwballs that were remade never quite had the same flair. Never quite had the same level of humor and the craziness. I don't know why.
Well,
I think of What's Up, Doc, quite frankly.
I thought it was pretty darn good. I think there was a lot of great things to it. But Barbara Streisand really kind of got it. She can be wacky.
Yeah.
She can be pretty wacky.
Yeah.
And but I mean, you're probably right. They're probably not as good. But you know, Some Like It Hot was pretty darn good.
Yeah, I think one of the things that happened and why you rightfully narrowed that period of time is that there were a lot of the earlier, whether it be slapstick or earlier comedies, had things that would not really happen in real life. And I think as we got later on, they try to be more realistic.
Yeah.
And away from more slapstickish, if you will.
Yeah, I think
so.
Kind of right on that. I think Woody Allen would be the exception because he'd make these really crazy films, like you know,
Sure.
early on.
Well,
I mean, I'm not talking about the social dramas, but those early, like Bananas and you know, that kind of stuff.
All I need to
Right.
say is one word regarding Woody Allen: the orgasmatron.
On
Says
that
it
note,
all.
we say
Yeah, on
goodbye
that
to
note.
comedies and we move on to chapter 6 in this great series. Thank you so much, guys.
Next time on Celebrating Act Two. Manny, this is a wonderful, wonderful series. You correct me if I'm wrong, but you said you have over 1,000 films that are your favorites, and from that you're culling 10 genres, the top 3 films in each genre during the studio period.
Mhm.
This is terrific. We're having a great time. Looking forward to part 6.
Thanks, guys.
For more on Celebrating Act Two, visit our webpage, follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and tell your friends. Celebrating Act Two is the user manual for the second half of your life.